I literally felt the animals are talking to me. I heard a voice in my mind, and I knew I can't make this up.
Ditte Young,
a renowned animal communicator
therapist,
and clairvoyant,
she also assists business owners
in making informed decisions.
I'm gonna freak you out now.
You already told me that you're talking to dead people and goldfish. There's not much more you can say that's gonna shock me.
I was standing there in front of this mirror and I asked her, so what do you have in there? And she said, it's a boy. You have a boy too. I ran home and I took a pregnancy test and I was pregnant with my son. After the Telepathy Tapes came out, the volume of people that are interested in my work has highly increased. They are interested in understanding behavioral issues, if they have a traumatized past or they were rescue dogs, and health issues. We don't have behavioral issues. We have a reaction to not being understood. I need to pass these methods on to animal owners because just like parenting, by understanding them, we can provide a better life for these animals.
Can anybody talk to their dead animal?
Yes, when they're not in grief, when they are ready to let go. Everyone can communicate with their own animals. The frequencies here, it's not heaven like 3 miles away. Heaven is here. It's just another frequency.
Hi, I'm Mayim Bialik.
I'm Jonathan Cohen.
And welcome to our breakdown.
If you ever have thought that your animal can hear you, can understand what you're saying, and can communicate to you, you are not alone.
That is a very hot take, and it is an accurate one. I would add, is there a way for us to try and frame clairvoyance in any sort of scientific or logical or materialist basis? We're going to be speaking to someone who has training as a therapist and discovered at a very young age that she was tuned into some frequency of information that other people were not. She now has made an entire career and life based on the intuitive abilities she has and the ability that she has to tap into what she says is an available energetic field that she thinks about 80% of people can be taught to tap into. Her primary method of communication is what some would describe as telepathic. And she does have an entire intuitive ability based around communicating with animals, understanding their medical needs with high accuracy. And she was featured on the Telepathy Tapes in the second of the bonus episodes after season 1, communicating some incredible clinical medical information, not only about animals, but about the people who own the animals that she works with. We're going to be welcoming Ditte Young, a renowned animal communicator, therapist, and clairvoyant. She works with everyone from pony riders to elite athletes on national equestrian teams. She also assists business owners in making informed decisions. She lives in Copenhagen. She's the mother of an extraordinary son. She has an incredible TED Talk, The 3 Tools to Success My Disabled Son Taught Me, which you really should check out. She also has Animal Telepathy Mastery and Masterclass for Parents of Non-Speaking Children. Before we get into that, Jonathan has a message.
Everyone, we are so grateful to be doing this podcast. We can't thank you enough for listening. If you haven't already subscribed, please take a moment, subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. It really does help us make the best possible episodes. And our promise to you is that we will continue to work as hard as we can to bring you the show that you love. Again, please do subscribe. Thank you so much. And on to the episode.
Break it down. Ditte Young, welcome to the breakdown.
Thank you for having me on.
Jonathan and I first learned about you from listening to the Telepathy Tapes, and the focus of your conversation was about animals and the ability that you have to communicate with animals, to understand things that other people don't. But I wonder if you can take us back before we even get to animals. How did you know that you had extrasensory abilities?
I didn't. I didn't know that I had extra sensibilities because back in the 70s and the 80s, we never spoke openly about spirituality. I knew I was the odd one out. I knew I was super sensitive. I knew I hated being in places with a lot of people, but I couldn't explain it, and there wasn't a name for it. I just predicted so many things as a young child, and I literally thought or felt the animals are talking to me. Am I going schizophrenic or what? And later, when I turned 19 years old, I contacted a clairvoyant school. We have those in Europe because we have a high standard when it comes to morality and ethics in the spiritual world. And I told her, will you please shut this down? And she said, yes, of course, I can help you shut it down, but you will develop it and you will become a very renowned animal communicator. And I asked her, animal, excuse me, what? Animal what?
So, I mean, that's an amazing summary of a variety of things that I have so many questions about. Many people, let's say, are sensitive or don't like to be around a lot of people. Does that mean that everyone who is sensitive in that way is tapping into something greater, or was that just your experience?
I think everyone is tapping into something, and not necessarily greater, but then each other. And that's why it becomes difficult to be around many people, because I think we lack a filter somewhere since we take in everything.
And when you say you heard animals talking to you, I instantly think of Dr. Dolittle. He was the man who could talk to animals. Can you give us like a specific example? What was it like when you felt animals were talking to you?
I literally heard a voice in my mind, and I knew I can't make this up. This is weird, because it could be a sentence like, do you see me? While I was eating, and I was like, who's speaking to me? And then I was looking at a dog, and I thought, was that the dog, or is this my imagination? And this is how it all begins, because you think it is your own fantasy to begin with.
Was it the same voice? Did every animal have a different voice? Were they speaking in Danish? Did they have accents? Like, what is the embodied voice of an animal?
The voice is the voice of energy. The transfer when it comes to telepathy for me is I luckily to receive telepathical downloads in three ways. The first thing is images in front of my inner eyes. That could be an image when I ask you and Jonathan, what is in your fridge? What is in my fridge? And you seek inwards instead of outwards. What is in my fridge? What's in the cabinet? What's in the drawers? And you can't make a precise whole perspective on the fridge. You are literally dividing each part of the fridge up to make an entire understanding of what was in the fridge. That's the first thing. And the second thing is clear sentience, the emotions, and that is pretty crucial or very important as a telepath. Do we like it or do we dislike it? And the third thing is it's the tone of the voice, which will sound like the tone of my own voice, but it can differ between, hi, I'm Ditte, or hi, I'm Ditte. And then it's my job as a telepath to translate, do we have an insecurity here? Do we have reluctance? Do we have skepticism? Do we have a shyness? Or what is it? And it's my job to translate this. And it's a global language because it's energy, which means when I meet a lot of now American animals, they speak the energy of an emotion, and I know what this emotion is. And it's my job to translate it. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, when you ask me if it makes sense, like this is hard to wrap my head around.
Makes perfect sense. Perfect sense.
You're asking me to understand something that I literally don't have access to it. So I think it's really incredible that you're able to articulate it. I mean, I think everyone experiences energy, right? But most of us don't have the kind of vocabulary that you do, to be able to make meaning out of it. When someone says they're hearing voices in a Western culture, the first thing we would say is you're having an auditory hallucination. and this is either schizophrenia or there's something going on in the brain, right? We would look for kind of the clinical assessment of why you're producing a voice. But there's something very different to me when people talk at this kind of energetic level, because I would say, and my training is in neuroscience, this is different than an auditory hallucination. This is not the same thing. I don't know what it is, but it's something.
I mean, it's like Dr. Dolittle without the voices, meaning each of the animals was personified in that. And this is, the animals are communicating in a tone that is much closer to her voice, but changes in register. What strikes me is the idea of, am I making this up or not, right? I think every intuitive person who starts to expand their ability begins to play with this question. Am I making it up, or is it valid information? And if so, what do I do with that valid information? And that begins the journey of working with this in either a professional or semi-professional way, where you have to learn how to validate information, what might be yours, what might be the information that you're picking up on. How do you get clear and unbiased? Especially, the telepathy tapes were so amazing. The couple of examples that were given, because they were really strange, the information that you were getting and to communicate back. So you really only know if it's valid once it's applied in the real world and people are able to act on it and test to say, is it true or not? And then I'm sure that gives you a feedback of, when it sounds like a certain way, then I should, be more aware of it, versus like if you're walking down the street and every chipmunk is talking to you, like that doesn't seem like a reasonable way to live.
No, my job as a telepath is to activate telepathy and to deactivate telepathy. Otherwise, I would have gone crazy many years ago. And a lot of people ask me, oh, by the way, can you just ask me about my cat when I'm sitting there at a party or a dinner and I'm not prepared for it? I'm like, oh, I thought I was at a party. I'm a private person now. I don't work. But can I do it? Sure, of course I can. But it takes a couple of seconds to activate it. And that's a way of protecting myself, I guess, because I do this every single day.
I also think that's the biggest difference between psychosis and intuitive ability. People may have intuitive ability when they are experiencing psychosis, but they're absolutely flooded and they have no way to filter out or to work with that information. So it becomes dangerous and then it takes them over. And the importance of the idea of being able to turn it on and off and access it at your will versus it controlling you.
My privilege was because I don't have animals. It's ridiculous. I have this job. I don't have horses, and people think I'm a writer, which I'm not. And I think the privilege I have is being non-biased, never project on my clients. I'm not fighting for animal rights. I'm not the kind of person. I just want them to treat their animals the right way and try to do better.
I mean, of course you don't have an animal. It would talk to you all the time.
Mayim Bialik's breakdown is supported by Superpower.
We've all been there. You get your blood work done, you wait a week, and the doctor says everything looks fine. Maybe they tell you drink more water or get exercise, but there's no breakdown of hormones, no insights into inflammation, toxins, nutrient deficiencies, just kind of vague advice and a quick send-off. We're here to tell you that Superpower is a completely different experience. We signed ourselves up and we're very excited to see our personalized, comprehensive lab results, all from the comfort of our homes. So here's how it works. 1 blood draw, 60 labs, and a complete look into what's going on inside your body. They test over 100 biomarkers covering everything from heart, liver, thyroid function to hormones, metabolism, vitamins, and minerals. It scans for thousands of different diseases, helps you close in on brain fog or low energy that you may be experiencing. You'll also get a personalized action plan based on your results, all laid out in the app, plus access to your own dedicated medical team to help guide you through what to do next. No, it's not a fantasy, it's real. It's the same level of insight that pro athletes get, but at a price that is actually accessible for you. Superpower is $199 for the full experience. That is a fraction of what others charge for less thorough testing. Their mission is very simple: to democratize health and make proactive preventative care affordable and accessible for everybody. Each test builds on the last, giving you a full picture of your progress year after year. Please go to superpower.com, learn more, lock in the special $199 price while it lasts. After you sign up, they're going to ask how you heard about them. Make sure to mention this podcast, Mayim Bialik's Breakdown. Help support our show. Your biology decoded, your blueprint activated with Superpower.
Mayim Bialik's Breakdown is supported by Blue Land.
Are you secretly cleaning with microplastics? If you're using detergent pods, your clean might not be as clean as you think. That's why we have made the switch to Blue Land across all the cleaning products in our house. The products meet the highest standard of clean. They're effective, gentle on your family and on the planet. Blue Land was also named an EPA Safer Choice Partner of the Year. From cleaning sprays and toilet bowl cleaner to dishwasher and laundry detergent tablets, Blue Land's formulas are 100% microplastic free, made with certified clean ingredients, free from chlorine, bleach, and harsh chemicals that are safe to use around your family, your pets, even your plants. I love not having to choose between the safe option and what actually gets the house clean. Blue Land makes it easy to make sustainable choices. Their hardworking clean products allow you to do better for your family and the planet. Blue Land products are independently tested to perform alongside major brands. They're free from dyes, bleach, and harsh chemicals. They're certified by EPA Safer Choice Certified, EWG Verified, Leaping Bunny, USDA Bio-Based, B Corp. We love Blue Land because they consistently deliver clean, effective ingredients that are also affordable. Blue Land has a special offer for our listeners right now. Get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/break. You don't want to miss this.
Blueland.com/break for 15% off. That's blueland.com/break to get 15% off. Mayim Bialik's Breakdown is supported by Green Chef.
Fall is such a special season. Crisp air, cozy sweaters, and warm flavors make everything feel just kind of comforting. It's the perfect time to reset and bring healthy habits back into focus. With Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for clean eating, you can do just that. Green Chef makes it easy to spend less time in the kitchen and more time enjoying fall. With their new Heat and Eat meals, enjoying a delicious wholesome meal in just 3 minutes is now possible. Perfect for supporting your wellness journey. Green Chef recipes feature fresh, organic, seasonal produce and 100% responsibly sourced proteins to help you feel your best. Green Chef's real clean ingredients help you build lasting healthy habits without the hassle. Enjoy salads ready in 5 minutes, protein-filled breakfasts, or nutrient-rich smoothies to fuel your day. Green Chef is ready to nurture your nutritional needs with 80+ dietitian-approved weekly meal options. It's easy to find meals that fit your lifestyle. There's Mediterranean, gluten-free, plant-based, protein-heavy, even gut and brain health and calorie-smart choices too. The recipes change every week, and with week-to-week flexibility, you can adjust your plan to match your mood and your schedule. Jonathan and I both love Green Chef, and I love that they have a plant-based plan. I love their golden coconut curry chickpea soup. It is very good, and Jonathan loves their gluten-free plan with things like salmon with herb chickpea and kale. Make this fall your healthiest yet with Green Chef. Go to greenchef.com/50break. Use code 50break to get 50% off your first month, then 20% off for 2 months with free shipping.
That's code 50break at greenchef.com/50break.
When you went to this person when you were, I think you said 19, what were some of the skills that you learned to be able to sort of better regulate the information that it sounds like you didn't even know how to turn off that was coming into you?
I loved the training and the exercises during this 6 months of training. And later I went to a therapy school and educated myself as a certified psychotherapist. But to begin with, a lot of these exercises were being blindsided, which means an envelope and an image of something in the envelope, or literally being blindfolded and tune into other people, which made it impossible to, in Europe, we called it cold read them. Like if you are nodding the head, it's like, they probably said yes. And the teachers made it impossible for us to do that. We needed to trust our intuition 1000%. And that made me faster. And I hope, I'm proud to say, it made me a well-known and renowned animal communicator and a clairvoyant on a very professional level, because we can't guess. I can't guess when I go or assume anything, because I might fail. I have to feel it when I go to work.
Describe the process of starting to realize that this wasn't schizophrenia, it wasn't crazy making, where you're in the early stages of the journey and you begin to realize there's something valuable and interesting here that you can have access to. What was the process, or was there a moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I have something that is very unique?
I think it was when I reached the animal part, because to begin with, the first 6 months was clairvoyance, mediumship, talking with spirits, deceased people on the other side.
Just the basics, talking with people on the other side.
Yeah, these are the 101 classes at psychic mediumship school.
Just basics.
Also, can I go to this school? Mayim and I, let's go. Let's do an episode where we go to this school for 6 months.
Just literally the basic things we needed to have as a clairvoyant here where I live. And then we didn't have animal communication in Europe. I was pretty much alone and I needed to figure out, what is this? So I took in literally everything: birds, cats, goldfish, dogs, horses. I was just curious, what is animal communication? What is telepathy almost 30 years ago? And I saw, oh my freaking God, this is super easy. Is that it? Is that it? I need to pass this on. I need to pass these methods on to animal owners, because just like parenting, the animal owners assume my dog have a behavioral issue.
It's always the parent.
Exactly. And when I saw that by understanding them on a higher level, or just even better, we can provide a better life for these animals and children by removing the subject behavioral issues, because we don't have behavioral issues. We have a reaction to not being understood.
You were blessed with a very special child. When in your journey did you become a mother, and in which ways did your abilities benefit you as a parent?
I'm going to freak you out now. So please stay open here.
You already told me that you're talking to dead people and goldfish. There's not much more you can say that's going to shock me.
Let's go then. When I was on the path with as a newbie with animal communication, I loved horses because it's so complicated, because that's the only animals we were sitting on. I visited a stable, and this owner wanted me to help a mare, a she horse, and he wanted to know the gender of what she was pregnant with, because a stallion is worth a lot more money than if it was a mare. And I remember I was standing there in front of this mare, and I asked her, so what do you have in there? And she said, quote, it's a boy, and you have a boy too. And I was freaked out. I was sorry, excuse me, because I wasn't planning on getting pregnant. And I ran home and I took a pregnancy test, and I was pregnant with my son, Philip.
Had you had sex with anyone, or was it an immaculate conception? Because that would be, we could start a religion.
That would top the story. No, I did have sex to get my son in there. And being a mother to a neurodivergent child, I came from the TV industry, and we work all hours during a day. And I knew I can never go back, because Philip, my son, won't allow me doing so. And I was already clairvoyant and an animal communicator. And I thought, well, beep this. I'm going to do this, full time, because then I can balance my private life and my professional life.
Was it at all weird to you that the animal knew you were pregnant before you did?
It was super weird. And I'm still, after 30 years of practice, I'm still amazed, and I'm still stunned, and I'm still surprised when animals tell me stuff.
So can you tell us a little bit more about Philip, and how having such a special child allowed you to, I guess, access a different aspect of your abilities in a very personal way?
When I was pregnant with Philip, I knew something was off. I could sense something was off, but no one believed me, because I was this hysterical first-time mom. And when I gave birth to him, and it was super traumatic, I felt it is off, it is off, it is off. I never had eye contact with him. I sensed he was in there, and yet I couldn't communicate with him. No reaction at all. And then I asked the nurse that came, that did house calls, can you please take me seriously now? He's 3 months old, and I don't have eye contact with my own son. And she didn't believe me. And then I'm the type of mom that just, was being stubborn. And I told her, you're fired. I need another nurse. And in came the other nurse and said, I think we have a huge problem here. And we got hospitalized. And the neurologist and the doctors were just entering this hospital room. And they said, you have a completely blind son. And I was speechless. I'm sorry, what did you say? What, do we need a dog, or should he read brailles, or what is the future? And this was the first, and this is my only son. And I think most parents fear. I do hope that my child is sound and safe and a healthy child, even though we have neurodivergency. Thank God for that. We wish for a normal functioning kid. And this was the first thing. Well, he's blind. And they said he'll never be able to see because we can't fix nerves, because we have malfunctioning optical nerves with him. And I never believed them. So I kept training his nerves, and now he has a vision, partial vision. And then they told us that he has a minor brain damage. And later we were told that he's autistic as well. So he has a lot to I don't know if it's a fight for him, because I think Philip only knows the world as being Philip, but we have an entire system around us that requires a lot of resources to help him in the society as it is right now.
Is Philip verbal, or do you communicate with him telepathically?
I communicate with him telepathically. He can say yes and no and make very short sentences. And I know that the Telepathy Tapes have allowed me to drop this here on this podcast, but he's actually in the Telepathy Tapes the next time, season 2, and drops October 15. And he was very courageous to sit there in front of the producer with a mic and needed to speak in front of her in English, because we have to remember he was never taught English. He taught himself English.
What is it like to communicate with your child telepathically? How does it work?
Actually, the same way as any other child I'm helping or an animal, but it's difficult for me because I'm so emotional when it comes to my son. I am biased. And I can hear a sound, like the tone in my voice, yelling, Mom, please come and help me. And I have to trust this one when I hear it, because it doesn't happen a lot. And when I enter his room, he needs help, or he can tell me stuff in school, I need help. And then I'm going to call the school, what is going on with Philip? And they can tell me, the teachers, oh, he just had an accident, or he's a little bit upset right now.
What does the school think when you call them? Are they used to this now? They just know that you have the red phone in the president's office directly to you?
I don't know if they know that I'm a telepath. They might do that because we are here in Denmark and I do have a name here now, but I never speak open about, I'm a telepath, so I know I'm right here. I'm just a regular mom in the system.
Many of us, especially, moms, and especially, when our kids are young in particular, we say that we have kind of a second sense, that sometimes we know when something's off, or like you said, sometimes you'll feel like I need to check on the baby, things like that. Do we all have the ability to expand this sense of intuition to enter into a deeper knowing? Or is this something you think that's reserved just for some people?
I know that it's for everyone. I know that everyone can learn telepathy because I'm teaching people all over the world about the telepathical methods, and it takes about 3 minutes. Becoming a professional and becoming a very skilled telepath requires that you have a lot of knowledge when it comes to how to handle these informations. What about health issues when we are passing it on to the veterinarians or the doctors? But we can get all sorts of informations, and that is the difficult part. But I do believe that everyone can have access to a part of a brain, but we need to train it. And because I am exercising every single day, and I've done that for 30 years, of course, my brain is strong, fast, fit. And if I wouldn't practice telepathy for a year, I needed to start, not all over, but I needed to up my game a little bit.
I want to know what you can teach people in 3 minutes.
The envelope exercise. That's a good start. That's what I passed on from my school to my students because I think it's genius. I take an image and I put it in an envelope and I blindside them, or I blindfold them and I ask them what's in the envelope, and every single student of mine is like, what? I can't, I don't know how to do it. And then I ask them to do a visualization practice. They need to be very in tune. They need to be very in tune with themselves, all their 5 and 6 senses, to activate the 7th one. And then they open their mouth and they're telling me what's in the envelope. And 80% of them are correct the first time.
That's unbelievable. And I think this is the thing that when people hear about telepathy, they're like, oh, it's just like something floating and you just grab it from the air. There's actually a practice that you're talking about. And we've spoken to many different kinds of mediums and channelers, and everyone is describing this place that you drop into, right? It's like dropping into the heart instead of the head. There's some sort of feeling place that I don't know that I've ever been, where this information is then more accessible. And people who do remote viewing, people who are paid by the US government and many other governments to do this, they're taught this skill, this kind of dropping in. It's also the place that meditation happens, and that many people would argue healing of the body happens and healing of the spirit. That in that, if you can get into that place, all of this stuff opens up.
And of course, every single person on the planet have access to that place, but we need to quiet the mind and we need to know ourselves, because it's super important to stop the projection. For as an example, you heard the Telepathy Tapes episode with me, yeah? So you listen to me helping a dog called Tucker. He shows me a park. That's the images. And it's my job as the translator to feel, do we like the park or do we dislike the park? And then Tucker said, take me to a park, because I used to be there. Every single detail of this is based from one image of a park, but emotions. I miss the park. I would love to go back to the park, which made me translate. He says, take me to a park. He would love to go to a park. I can see children. It is not your children, because I felt they weren't familiar to me as the translator. Does this make sense?
It makes sense, and it's unbelievable. I mean, we're in a different plane of, like, we're in a part of my brain that I don't usually use, but yes, this makes sense.
And I think that's the point, right? Is everyone has access to this, but because we don't use it on a regular basis, people's telepathic ability and ability to read this information has atrophied.
100%.
When you talk about the fact that you would have to, get your strength back if you didn't do it for a year, this is a muscle that we're not using. It's a skill set that we're not using. And by slowly starting to use it again, we can have access to it. If people haven't heard the Tucker example, it was so powerful because it's a dog who gets adopted. He has gone through a series of adoptions. He was misplaced. He had an owner who passed away. He went into a shelter. And in his new environment, he's not acclimating in a way that the family can really understand. He's standoffish. And it's so emotional when you go and communicate with him, because he's unsure if that's his forever home or not. And in the episode, they're actually contemplating whether or not he should stay because he hasn't really acclimated and he has all this standoff behavior. So it's really, really emotional. And what's kind of both shocking and touching is that there are all these memes now and videos on the internet of, since the telepathy tapes, this is how people speak to their dogs. They explain to them that they're going to be home in a certain amount of time. And I've started to do it too with Archie. I tell him Archie was a rescue, and he was given up at 5 months after a couple was going to get a divorce. And he then went to a foster family. And when we met him, it was like he had been waiting for us. And yet still, he had very high anxiety about following us around. He would leave his food to make sure that he knew where we were. He had a lot of separation anxiety. And so we began to talk to him. You're here forever. This is your forever home. We're always coming back to you. We love you. And it started to shift how attached he was. He was always very attached, but it started to shift his anxiety. And we also started telling him, so he would come in the car with us and we'd be like, okay, we're going to the store. They don't allow dogs in the store. We're going to be back and it's going to take about an hour. And Mayim would get upset with me. She's like, it's going to take more than an hour. You got to tell him. You got to make sure he knows. You don't want to mislead him because he's not going to trust us.
This is a good example. And Ditte, I wonder if you can, sort of elaborate on some of this. How much of us communicating with animals, right, is what we need and how much is what they need? Because what I see is that Jonathan is a very anxious parent, and Jonathan seems to be very anxious when he is away from the animal. And I'm wondering, how much of it is, and I'm not just asking you to read Jonathan, although I literally will send you all the money I have for you to read this man, but I'm wondering how much of this has to do with us intuiting into the animal and how much of it is there's this kind of elaborate interplay, meaning are you essentially doing therapy for people when you're communicating with animals as well?
That's the best question ever, Mayim, because that's so true. I think it's interesting to see this massive reaction people have worldwide after this episode on animal communication. And Kai Dickens just visited me here in Copenhagen, Denmark. And she said the episode where I participated is going super viral. And they have, loads of email requests. How can I get in touch with Ditte Young? And I feel that as well in my inbox. And she said, why is that happening? Why is it easier with the animals? And I said, because it's animals. It's the cutest puppy. It's not that dangerous as neurodivergency or non-speakers, because people are respectful of it and a little bit afraid, I guess. But to shorten the question or the answer, when I, as the teacher, had to pass on my methods, I needed to create a system. And maybe this will become helpful, maybe it will not. But I saw a pattern in animals' behavioral system. And I created 6 personality profiles, just as we have when it comes to leadership and other companies.
What are the 6 personality types of pets?
Here it goes. These are called the playful one, the sensitive one, the prince or princess, the king or queen, the rigid, lazy one, or the shock traumatized one. And please do remember, your animal can be several of these.
Archie is the first 4.
I doubt that he would be the prince and the king.
Oh no, he's just the prince.
And those personality profiles come with a behavior like human beings. The playful one is the ADHD, ADD kid on speed. The sensitive one is the, autistic one, the more sensitive, hypersensitive one, needs boundaries, needs structure in the everyday life. The prince is the dominant one, pick me, see me all the time. The king is the old balanced dog that will allow other puppies to climb all over this dog. The rigid one is depressed and is shut down. It's a defense mechanism. And the shock traumatized, of course, it wasn't born that way. It's a defense mechanism as well. Then we have those 6 profiles. When I combine them with their human beings, they have profiles too. And now comes the interesting part. Now comes couple therapy. Because Jonathan, here to mention what I know, if you are nervous, anxious as well, you will, increase the problem. Instead of, I would ask you, if you were my client, will you please step up and become the king, please? If you do have a sensitive dog with a shock trauma, you can't both have a shock trauma here. Because what do animals need? A leader. They need safety. That's the only thing they need. And when you ask me, Mayim, do we talk a lot to the animals? Do they actually need all this communication? No, they don't. We as human beings verbalize ourselves all the time. Blah, 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 blah. Can't you please just beep up? Because the animals feel. They feel the leader in the pack. They feel the sensitive one. They even feel if you have guests coming over who's nervous, who's stressed out. They don't need us to vocabularize this.
I mean, I'm thinking right now. So I'm a cat person, and we have this dog that has entered our life in the last year or so, less than a year. And I'm wondering if these personality types and all of these things hold for cats and dogs, because, you know, when I think of cats, they're very independent. You know, they clean themselves, which I think is like the greatest thing in the world. Like, you have an animal that literally prides itself on cleaning its tush. And, you know, when we have guests over, we have one cat that's very social, very friendly, and the other just kind of like hides until, you know, everything is, because he's very anxious, right? But when I think of dogs, like, dogs are so much more interested and engaged in the human world in a way that I was frankly not prepared for. This is its own episode, is like what happens when a cat person has to be a dog person. So do these things hold for cats, dogs, horses, and fish and birds? Is this something specific just to dogs because they're so, you know, geared towards basically being bred, you know, to be a loyal companion? Like, also, how do you hold all of these different animals in your head?
I never asked a goldfish, what kind of hierarchy do you have? Are you the Goldie king here?
Are you the real deal, Ditte? Why do you not ask the goldfish where they are in the hierarchy?
Stupid of me. But I do know they would probably forget after one round in the fishbowl. They were like, what? Sorry, what? But those animals who have my interest are cats, dogs, horses in general, because for me, when I started many years ago, I needed some sort of evidence for what I said. And the only way I could show that would be a behavioral change. And you can see that with cats, somewhat a cat from time to time. If it's running away from the home, can you get it to come back or not? That could be a proof. But definitely with dogs and horses. And wildlife animals have my interest as well, but how can I prove it? I can't. It can just be a nice story I told people, right? And the similarity of the personality profiles, regardless of the races or the genders, are the same, basically the same. You could find a sensitive princess as a cat. You could find a playful king as a cat.
I mean, the first dog that I started to communicate with was an elderly dog who had been the family pet for a very long time, a little miniature collie. I was starting to learn how to do distant energy healing, and I was trying to see if it would work. I was still in that phase where I'm like, this is cool, but like, how real is it? How much am I making up? How much am I not? The dog was probably like 13, 14 at the time. She had started to get arthritis, really slowing down, and she had a habit of sleeping in the hallway right against the wall with her feet up in the air against the wall. And I would sit in a room just like attached to the hallway, like the door was to the hallway. And so I could kind of peek in, but I would sit behind a wall. So like she couldn't see me. I couldn't see her unless I stuck my head around the corner. And I would connect to her and start to send her energy. And as soon as I would do that, she would start to shake and twitch. And I started to like be fascinated by that. And the more I did that, and the more I sort of began to feel what it was like to be that old a dog, and I would like feel the arthritis and I would feel her joints. And then she started to communicate telepathically with me because that channel had begun to open, and she would start to tell me what she needed, tell me when she was not able to go downstairs. She used to go, like my room was in the basement, and she would tell me, no, my legs are too sore. I can't go downstairs today. She would tell me that she wanted different food when she stopped eating. She didn't know that I could communicate with her, and I didn't know that she could communicate until we sort of built the language together.
Wow. So you are an animal communicator.
I mean, this feels a little bit like Jonathan coming out of the spiritual closet, because I've heard him talk about energy and animals, but I don't know that I had ever heard him talk about it in a telepathic sense. Ditte, I wonder if you can kind of share with us a little bit, kind of a little of this framework. being part of the telepathy tapes and kind of entering, a different aspect of notoriety. What have you learned about what people want to know from animals and just from these other senses?
Well, I think it's the same thing people are interested in as they have been for the last 30 years. I've done this to be honest, but the volume of people that are interested in my work has highly increased after the telepathy tapes came out. They are interested in understanding behavioral issues, and that is often separation anxiety, outbursts, or reaction in the meeting with other animals, such as another dog, their pasts, if they have a traumatized past or they were rescue dogs, and health issues. And it's always difficult for me, even though I do know I have this weird sort of telepathical X-ray vision on health issues, so I can actually be pretty accurate, but I do have very much respect for not being the veterinarian, not stepping over these boundaries, and pass them on to the more academical world when I work. And I think it's a huge, not pressure, but it's a big responsibility. Many of those clients are trying to push or bring me as a telepath because even though I'm a therapist, even though I'm very experienced, there are so many people out there saying, I'm a telepath, I'm an animal communicator, and have no idea how important it is, what kind of informations they are passing on to a vulnerable animal owner, to be honest.
Can you give an example of what level of specificity you've had that's been accurate? Because I think for a lot of us, it's like, okay, but what's the proof? Because, for example, and no insult to the horse story, you have a 50% chance of being right if an animal's a boy or a girl, right? So someone's bringing you in and that's a 50% chance. But in the telepathy tapes, you talked about a very specific, medical condition. Can you give us another example of something that even you were kind of shocked that this was accurate about?
I have an example from today because I just helped one of the clients from America. My client said, my dog just recently passed. Can you tell me why it passed? That's an open question. I don't have a 50% chance here. And I tuned in on the picture and I said, are you sure? Are you absolutely sure you want this information? And she said, yes, because she was devastated. And I told her, I do believe that 48 hours prior to it passed away, it got maybe a vaccine or something that was toxicating for it, and then it ran into organ failure. So the first thing that happened was an increased or a very high blood pressure, and it had a minor heart problem that led into something bursted, and it drowned in its own blood. And she literally bawled her eyes out and said, that's correct. That's what happened.
What were you feeling? I want you to take us through, pretend like I have no idea, right? What this is like for you. Explain to me what it was like to feel into this animal's field, right? Or communicate with an animal that is deceased. What did it feel like? What were the symbols? And I'm asking because I think like people don't understand what it's like for you to get that information. What are you seeing, feeling, tasting, smelling? What gives you that level of specific information about how that animal died?
I saw everything. I saw it. I don't want to feel it anymore. I don't want it transferred inside of myself because after so many years as an animal communicator, it is way too hard on me and my physical system and my health to keep receiving all these illnesses all the time because I take it in and I get sick from it. So I've asked many years ago the animals, can you please just show it on your body and not transfer it into me? But as a newbie translator or telepath, they want the transportation of the illnesses and the pains to their own body to have some sort of an evident experience. Whoa, I suddenly experienced pain on my left shoulder and nothing is wrong, or I suddenly felt a headache. So for this specific dog, I kept seeing these images or movie in front of my eyes. Like, it wasn't afraid. I can tell there was all this commotion in the vet clinic, and they're super afraid. They knew that she was going to die. They knew it because I could tell. It was like watching a movie, and I saw, but she was pretty calm because she knew this is the end of it. I'm not going to survive. And I saw the blood, and I saw the drowning situation, and I saw the heart pumping like really fast. I never felt anxious. I never felt scared. I just literally opened my mouth and said, because I asked her, are you absolutely sure you can handle the truth? And she said, yes. And then I just told the truth. And that's what I love about my job and what I hate about my job, because this wasn't a funny job at all. This wasn't satisfying in any way to pass on so violent, vulnerable, massive images to a dog parent that are in grief here. And other times when we can rescue them or we can save them, when I get information such as, I know that we can save them if they get this and this and this, of course, it's a success story.
Very, very powerful. I mean, the example on the telepathy tapes about the horse that ends up winning a silver medal is fantastic because it's an uplifting story. And what strikes me is that this horse was, for people who haven't heard it, was getting nauseous in the trailer because it couldn't balance itself. And what it needed was the driver to communicate the curves of the road so that it could balance itself. And in all the other outings and trips, it would get nauseous, it would get dehydrated because it wouldn't drink, and then it wasn't able to perform. And once the driver was able to tell it, okay, we're turning, the road is going to curve left, brace yourself, the road is going to curve right, and they did it over a 16-hour trip, the horse gets out, feels great, is hydrated, is able to eat, and then goes and wins a silver medal. And you're like, if only that, like, think about all the time that that person struggled with that horse being sick. And I think the same is true with humans, right? Do you do human health communication as well? Because so many people are in a state where, oh, it's this thing they're eating, or they're exposed to mold and they don't know it, or there's some other health issue happening that is sort of outside the purview of something that is obvious, and yet it can have such a huge impact.
Yeah, because I am a clairvoyant and I'm a therapist as well. I think just personally that it's a nice combination to combine the clairvoyant field. And if my clients can figure out the answers, I tune in on the answers and I ask them, does this make sense to you? Oh, yeah, it makes sense to you. And then we can go back to therapy. And I'm helping a lot of non-speaking children as well. And it's such an amazing, it's beautiful work. And for me, it makes sense. Everything made sense, because if you have to remember, I don't have animals. Being an animal communicator is like, what? I would rather go back to the TV industry rather than going to the stables every week. But after becoming the mother of Philip and watching him grow up in a society that is not prepared for this neurodivergent increased number of children we have, makes my mission important, because even though I speak animal communication and telepathy is for everyone. And I do hope that this can change the future. Maybe a naive thing, but I do believe that we are standing in front of a huge paradigm shift.
I fully agree with you. I think we are at a state where more and more people are realizing that there is more to their lives than what they've been told, that we're simply not just a collection of parts, and that the material world is very important, but not all there is, and that we can have richer lives, more connected lives, more interpersonal lives, find deeper relationships, and have more meaningful connection, and find even our purpose through increasing our felt sense of the world and navigating in that way. So I agree with you. I think we are at a point where the world is changing and more people are utilizing that atrophied part of their brain to get extrasensory information.
It's interesting, Jonathan, that you brought up the human part because, many people love animals because they are less complicated than humans. And, it can be very gratifying, to be a pet parent and to have pets in your life that way. But I think what's also interesting is when you talk about, kind of being able to read into animals, I so wish that we could read into humans the same way, meaning so many people try so many different modalities to get better, to heal, They go to therapists, or you try medication, or you try this diet, or maybe if I'm skinnier, or, like whatever we use to kind of, fill that. And I wonder, do you still work with humans as well? And do you do kind of readings that way? And are the answers often as, I don't want to say simple, but as clear as they are with animals?
I must admit that I have a rate now that is pretty high. And the reason for having that is not only because of the success as an animal communicator or clairvoyant, it is because of the group of people I enjoy working with. And the group of people I would like to work with are the ones that take it seriously and will change things. Because a lot of people out there will try this and this and this and this for $30. And it's desperate. And it's never going to work if you're not going to meet the right person or a professional person saying, you're not welcome in my clinic if you're not going to change anything, So just stop. Keep posting money or throwing money at different source of practitioners because it's not going to work. And I do hope that, and that's what I observe here in Europe, that a lot of my colleagues and practitioners are working on that level. It's not about earning the money. Of course, it's a job. It's about, can we move and develop people or not? And are they ready for it? Because of course it varies from people to people. And I don't think it's ever going to be easy working with human beings because we make life so complicated. A lot of people know, oh, I'm doing this, I have this reaction, I have this behavioral system or pattern because of my past and my childhood. Well, good for you, but what are you going to do about it in real life? That's the next level. And there are not as many people that are aware of how to change it as there is people that can identify where it started.
A lot of people are addicted to information and insight. They like the rush. They like oh, I found this pattern, but very few or much fewer are interested in taking that information and making practical change. And I hear what you're saying. When the rate is high, there's an investment. It's a little bit double-edged, right? On one hand, we want this information to be accessible, practical for everyone who wants to change. And at the same regard, you have to protect your time and you have to make it so that the people have an investment, and it makes it a little bit hard for them so that their stakes are great and that they want to make the change that is possible.
Can anybody talk to their dead animal?
Yes, when they're not in a projecting mode, when they're not in grief, when they are ready to let go. Because to begin with, a lot of animal owners are devastated, of course, because they're often they are more upset about losing their animals than there is losing their partners. It's like truly devastating for them losing their animals because they only consist of out of pure love. But when they're ready to hear it, everyone can communicate with their own animals. As an example, the client today with the deceased dog couldn't sense or pick up on the signals from her dog because I told her, it is right here. Come on, the frequency is here. It's not heaven like 3 miles away. Heaven is here. It's just another frequency. And she said, I don't feel it. I don't sense it. I don't see it. And that's honest. And I felt you can't see anything because you can't feel anything. You're not even connected to yourself right now because you are that traumatized.
Do dead animals not have something else to do in the afterlife? They're just always available to communicate? Like at a certain point, do they like say, okay, my spirit is going off to some other realm of the galaxy. It's been nice. I'll communicate with you through like a telegram, but it's going to take me a little bit. How is it that all the animals are always right here to communicate forever?
They are here when we are calling them. When we're not calling them, they're pretty busy with their own lives, playing with the ball, running with other friends. And I do believe I don't hold the entire truth here, but in my experience, we have individual heavens, which means when you're going to pass, Jonathan, you'll be in your heaven. I'm going to be in my heaven. Mayim, you're going to be in your heaven. But we are part of a collective. We're part of the same heaven. Another picture could be if we are entering heaven, quote heaven, it's one school, but each and every single one of us have our own individual classrooms, but we're part of something bigger or greater. My brain can't even comprehend how big it is. And they are busy over there. It's not that we're going to die. We're going to sit there and watch TV for the rest of nothing because we don't have a timeline over there. We have development over there. We have tasks we have to develop and progress over there as well till we are ready to get back. And when somebody's calling us, I will be looking at a face and I would know, oh my God, somebody needs my help. Like when Philip, my son, calls for me in his room, I would be, okay, I need to take care of this. And then I will enter planet Earth and answer the questions they might have and go back to my busy life in heaven.
Do you think they miss us in their busy lives? Like we're always calling them. Do they call us?
No. I think there's such a misconception of death here on this planet. We have so much anxiety, so much fear of missing out. So we are so focused on abandonment themes. They don't over there. They are at ease. They are balanced. When we meditate, we feel love. We feel tranquility. We feel balanced. We don't feel anything else besides from that. So what should we hurry up for? Nothing. That's what heaven must be like. Maybe that's why we call it heaven, because it feels heavenly.
What would you like people to sort of take away? If you could impart, a message to humanity, what do you want people to know about this life, about the possibilities here, about what they might be going through?
That's a huge question, Jonathan. I would ask people to consider that even though we might come back and we might reincarnate as other people, you will only have one chance of being the one person you are in this life, which means your family members, your mom, your dad, your sisters, your friends can only be your mom and dad and friends in this life. And even though we have soulmates and we will meet on the other side, your dad is not necessarily be your dad in the next life. He might be your brother or your boyfriend, which means get the best out of it in this life because you only have one chance of being who you are.
Yeah, is there some energetic plane that we exist on that some people have the skill to tap into so that information is available to them in different ways? And yeah, I just have so many other questions that I don't think any of us can answer. Why you and not someone else, or why does someone else have a different ability, or why does Philip have the abilities he does? We all have like a little piece of this gigantic, puzzle.
We do. And I don't think that we as human beings have a brain that can comprehend that knowledge, Mayim, to be honest, because the puzzle is that big and it continues on the other side and on other frequencies. And taking an example on the telepathy tapes, people are very curious about the quote, the hill. It's a place where autistic children can meet, share hobbies, share emotions, share knowledge. And people are trying to enter the hill. And I was sitting there listening to people that said, oh, I want to enter the hill. I was rejected or I was accepted. I'm special. And I thought, what are you doing in there? Why can't we on planet Earth use planet Earth where we have access with Wi-Fi, phones, Zoom calls, etc., to share knowledge? We don't need another frequency. We have it. We already have it. It's accessible.
Where can people find out more about you? Tell us where people should go.
I would recommend them to Google my name, Ditte Young. I am on every single social media platforms out there: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And my website is ditteyoung.com.
Thank you so much. This was really incredible. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
One of the things that I find so, incredible about Ditte is, just when I think someone's going to be like way too out there and like it's going to be cuckoo pants insanity, it's not like I'm like, oh, I believe all this like out there bananas thing. But like what she's talking about it does have some sort of grounding when you frame it the way people are taught to do remote viewing. When we spoke to Angela Ford and she was like, oh no, the government takes people who've never done this and don't know what it is, and they teach them to intuit what's in an envelope. What?
When we spoke to Julia Mossbridge, that she's showing that it's statistically significant, more than chance, that people are getting this information that they couldn't otherwise know, and that she's running real research behind it.
I don't know that I believe that like everybody can do it, because I know people who are like, I'm never going to meditate. I don't want to think about myself. I don't want to talk about feelings. Those people don't want to have a part of this. And then there's the people on the other side who are like, I'm totally into this. I want to learn it. If we look at it as kind of like just another skill, it's another skill that can be learned. But I think it's really important what she said. You don't do this on the first try, right? It's kind of like, also when people are like, I tried meditating and I tried it once and it didn't work. That's not how it works. That's like saying I tried to lift a 25-pound weight and I couldn't, therefore I never will. It's literally, there's a set of, it's like mental musculature. There's a set of practice of dropping in. I thought of Suzanne Giesemann, like we talked about it. Martha Beck talked about it. There's a way to learn to drop into this place. That's where I kind of question, like, anybody can get there. I don't know. Like, my brain doesn't like meditating without a lot of effort. There are some people who just like can drop in. Those are the people who can talk to a bird.
I don't know if I fully agree with you that, because I think as you get feedback, that information you get may have some accuracy. You're developing that muscle, and unlike meditation where there's really no end result, the successes in doing it, this has a little bit of a different form to it, and we begin to hear those messages and begin to distinguish between what is our internal dialogue and what might be an external message. Well, she says 80% of people have the ability to do it.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people. So I think you're right that some people are just either for whatever reason, either interest or constitutional makeup may not be suited for it, or may not be their thing. But I think a lot of people can. The thing I didn't get to ask her that I wanted to, which I think is a really interesting topic in general, is how animals sense us. So the idea that that horse knew that she was pregnant, or in the telepathy tapes that another horse knew that the rider had arthritis, and this was a teenage rider, and there was no evidence of the arthritis, so the horse knew before the rider knew, and then went to a doctor, and the doctor proved and confirmed that, in fact, they did have arthritis. That's really interesting to me. So I'm wondering about animals as understanding, like, have you seen the videos of the animals who know when someone is about to have a stroke, where their blood sugar drops and they can smell the blood sugar, and then they go and they inform the parent, or they bring them a juice?
Yeah. So this is where we have to be really careful. And this is where some of my constructive criticism of certain aspects of the telepathy tapes comes in. Because if you say something like, and I know you're not saying this, but if one were to say, the dog just knew and that I was going to have a stroke, that's what people like 600 years ago would say. 600 years ago, people would be like, the dog knew. And then they'd be like, we're going to burn you at the stake. And you'd be like, no, I'm not a witch. They'd be like, yes, you are. So what we know is that there are certain things that we can understand and measure. So yes, in this case, and I don't know the specifics, I have not done this research, if a dog is picking up on, let's say, something pheromonal, something that is detectable to the dog but not us, that's a different story. But what we're also talking about is there a level of intuition, communication that may go both ways, that is on a plane that we cannot yet measure, right? Many people who've had a near-death experience have been like, oh, one day you'll be able to measure this shit. But I'm telling you, it's true. So that would be, I think, just like there are wavelengths we can't see, there are frequencies that we can't hear, right? Like if a dog hears a whistle that like we can't hear, it's not like it's a magic whistle. It's like, oh, it's at a frequency so the same thing. There's a vibration, there's something energetic that Ditte can tap into, and I cannot.
So I don't know about the pregnancy thing, how the horse knows that someone is pregnant.
We don't know.
But there are many, many cases where dogs have been trained to identify when someone's blood sugar is at a dangerous level. And that's really testable because the dog indicates that the blood sugar is at a dangerous level. Then you can test it with a device and see that how accurate the dog is.
But that's still not telepathy. As Valerie tells us, there could be chemical changes in breath, saliva, and sweat that happen when blood sugar levels shift. I don't believe that the dog is like, I'm tuned into diabetes.
I'm not saying it's telepathy, but the fact that the dog has a nose that's able to track that while it's doing its other things and is aware of the human, like that's just a powerful interrelated dynamic that, I think we should just be aware of.
I beg to differ. To me, that's like dogs can smell shit that we can't.
What about dogs that can sense when a seizure is about to happen before a seizure is about to happen?
There are also things that are detectable that the dog is picking up on that are based on, I think, scent in particular. So, like a dog's nose is like insane. So that's scent. So we're talking at a level that is beyond scent. So is it that the horse could, smell, right? I don't know. The horse could smell a different hormonal profile on her, a different, sure, I'd be very interested if it's like a horse smell thing. It is still very hard for me, again, Sam Harris on my shoulder, it's still very hard for me to be like, that horse can see into that woman's womb and knew that there is a gestating human.
I don't think see. I think potentially, if it's not smell, it could sense.
But what is this? Is it a sixth sense? Maybe it's a seventh sense, as Ditte said.
We can talk about telepathy and extrasensory ability and have fun at the same time. That's the eighth sense.
I think you were trying to get her to do a reading of Archie. You kept dropping information.
Look, there is a picture of Archie when we were building the studio who climbed up into my chair, and he's so cute. He's like talking into the mic and sniffing the mic. This was his interview. If any of the guests could have been his interview, this could have been it. He's been waiting for his chance. He is the third co-host of this show.
The other thing I wanted to ask her that we didn't get into, I'm curious when she said she takes on other people's and other animals' pain and sickness.
This is a very common and big issue in intuitive work where people are trying to get information and they use their own body as a mirror in order to get said information. So she described it as you take on the pain and so, I feel it in my left shoulder, or I have a stomach ache and now I know that the person who I'm trying to communicate with or get information from remotely, that's what's going on with them. The danger of that is that you are having a physical experience that your body is registering as yours. It doesn't know the difference that you're using yourself as a mirror for someone else. So the same way we say that when you think a scary thought, your body produces the same reaction biochemically as if you were in a scary situation, the same is true for intuitives and mediums who are channeling information and using it in their own body. It then has to be processed and your body has to learn, wait a second, that isn't mine, and you have to separate. And so it's a whole process. The easier way to get that information, but does require a different level of experience, is just show me pictures or give me mental information. But that can be a little bit harder, especially as you're starting, in order to receive information accurately.
Judith Orloff, who we've talked about her in our empathy episode, remember we talked about there's different kinds of empaths, because this is a form of empathy, right? I mean, animal empathy, I think, Jonathan, was one of the choices, right? Being an animal empath. If you're receiving this kind of information, one of the suggested mechanisms is that you have a mirror neuron system that is more, I fill in the word, it's more active, it's more susceptible, it's more correlative. So in theory, if you want me to come up with sort of a mechanism, if you have, let's say, an exquisitely tuned mirroring system, and that's part of your intuitive or empathic capacity, what could be happening is you're activating a pathway, that is preferential that way for integrating others' experience as if it is your own. I mean, how that could cause, somatic stuff like that is, that's what the lady, the healer lady that I work with, that's what she'll say. She'll say sometimes to me, it's like her favorite thing to say, what are you feeling right now? My eyes are closed, I'm on the table. She's a craniosacral specialist and also SE, somatic experiencing. What are you feeling right now? And, I have to believe her, meaning if I'm going to be engaging with a healer, I have to believe her. So she'll say, like, I feel something in my heart. And sometimes she'll say it after, meaning you could be leading the witness, like, oh, do you feel something in your heart? And I'd be like, yeah, I feel it in my heart. But sometimes I'll say like, oh, I feel like a this. And she's like, I'm feeling it. She's mirroring what's happening.
When I was doing a lot of hands-on work, it would be very, very common to get sensation in different parts of my body. And moments later or minutes later or 5 minutes later, the person would be like, oh, I feel this nauseousness. And it is, you have to be really careful not to lead the witness. The signals that we get to tell us what's happening with the person receiving the treatment, and then that person will be like, all of a sudden, oh yeah, I feel this really big nauseousness in my gut. And then when they start to feel it, usually we don't feel it anymore. More experienced practitioners will say, I don't want to have that experience, and learn to regulate it. I think it's really interesting, the conversation about how to regulate extrasensory information to not be overwhelmed by it and for it not to take over. The fact that we think about an animal communicator going out to dinner at someone's home who has animals, and the animals are chiming in as much as the people at the dinner party are. And that can't be the case. Otherwise, you can't function as a regular person.
No, and what she said, and sort of when, Valerie, our producer, asked, like, can you do a reading? It's a state that she has to get into. And I understand it now, like she has to be in a place, she's got to drop in. It's like doing a reading. It's like leading a meditation, right? Like, it's not just like, oh, I'm looking at your dog and it does this. It's probably like more of a channel-y thing. I don't know. I'm also curious if maybe you were giving all of your symptoms to the people you were laying hands on.
Well, you ask to clear that. You say, is this mine or is this someone else's? If it's mine, I ask for it to be set aside. I'm going to revisit this after the session. There's a turn of phrase that is used. I ask to leave my baggage at the door to focus on this person for their highest good and what they need during the session. And if you say that a few times and clear it and it still comes back, it's the person that you're working on.
Sounds like you don't need to go to telepathy school. You're already there.
I'm going to start my own telepathy school. Sign up on my Instagram. We're going to start a class.
If you haven't listened to her episode of the Telepathy Tapes, I really recommend that people do that.
So cool.
After the formal Telepathy Tapes, there's some bonus episodes, and hers is the second one after that. So we recommend you check it out. Also, I'm going to look into her masterclass. I'm super fascinated. Maybe I should master animal telepathy.
I would love that. I would sign you up. I'm paying for your tuition and your flight to Copenhagen. If you want more on extrasensory abilities and intuition, follow us on Substack. Mayim Bialik's Breakdown on Substack.
Also, if you haven't been over to Substack, we have an excerpt from this episode that we specifically lifted that only lives on Substack. And it's an entire conversation about my cats, and one of the first times I knew that Jonathan actually was the master of practical spirituality, which happens to be the name of his Substack page. So for some very specific practical spirituality from Jonathan Cohen, please go over to Substack, go to bialikbreakdown.substack.com, and you can find out how to follow us. And you will hear more about Jonathan's practical spirituality. The most practical application of Jonathan's spirituality ever is over on Substack. And from our breakdown to the one we hope you never have. We'll see you next time.
It's Mayim Bialik's breakdown. She's gonna break it down for you. She's got a neuroscience PhD or two. One fiction, and now she's gonna break down